Hello, welcome to another episode of The Wonders We Find in Backyard, Idaho. Today, one of the wonders we're going to go see is the Cataldo Mission. I'm going to go up these stairs behind me and we'll see more of the mission at that point. The building that's emerging over the top of this hill is the Cataldo Mission. It's known by other names. It's known by Old Mission, and the Indians had a name for it that meant basically the House of Spirits. It was built back in 1853, so before the Civil War. That's pretty amazing, before the Civil War. It took many years for the Jesuit priests and the Indians, the Native Americans that helped them build it, to construct it. So let's walk up there. As you can see, we are much closer. Also, I wanted to let you know that this mission was originally called the Sacred Heart. Many of the Indians that lived in this area, the Native Americans, sent back east to St. Louis because they wanted to have priests. They thought it would keep their people safe, and in particular from the Blackfeet. As we're looking around, I want you always to imagine, what would this look like back then compared to now? Well, this spot we're looking at right now probably looked just like this. When they did the restoration, they tried to make it look like it did back in the 1850s, 1860s. Let's take a look around from here. That is the house that the Jesuits lived in. That particular building was built in 1876. Obviously a car wouldn't have been here back then. Right out in front of here is where the Mullen Trail would have gone. The Mullen Trail was built by Captain Mullen. It stretched all the way from Fort Benton all the way to Fort Walla Walla. That's in Washington. That's right, Walla Walla, Washington. You can see in the background that there's a freeway there. That would not have been there, neither that big building in front of us. So it gives you kind of an idea of the area. Back behind the mission is the actual river that runs through here. And people would come up and down that river in steamboats. So this was a vital hub. Eventually, the railroads were nearby also. Within a couple miles of this site, it was a railroad station in a place called Cataldo. So it had access to a lot of the arteries of ways to get around back in the 1800s and early 1900s. It was kind of a busy place for a while. Let's go inside. As we get ready to head in, please note up there in the window is artwork of a heart, noting again the place was called Sacred Heart. Let's go inside. As we look around in here, please make sure you notice that almost all of this was built and painted and constructed in the 1850s, 1860s. Originally, the glue was made from huckleberry juice, and they wanted it to be up there to remind them of the sky. Notice all of the woodwork up there? It was also mostly done by under Father Rivali's care and direction. The paintings that you've seen here were also made by Father Rivali. He was quite an artist. A lot of the things like the chandeliers were made by him. The carvings were done by him. fourth grade or something you need to know is that we are in right now the oldest standing building in the state of Idaho. I'm going to go up and get a little closer so you can see a better view. If you look at the chandeliers, the candle holders here, he cut those out of a tin can. So kind of like a pop can, I guess, except those are aluminum. And he used a knife, and he designed all those patterns and then cut them out with his knife. Pretty amazing. If you take a look at the canvases and stuff here, they look like they're been a little deteriorated, but they're pretty old and they've been painted. People paint canvas all the time for decoration. Here we are up at the altar. A lot of this was made by him as well. Something I think that's interesting is that when you look at the painting there, it kind of looks like marble, and the way he painted it was designed to look like marble that was imported from somewhere in Europe. They tried to make this as lavish as they could, but also understanding they couldn't afford to have marble shipped from Europe over here to place in those spots. There's some more, if you take a look up there, of the tin work that he cut out with a knife. Pretty amazing. I know I couldn't do anything like that. You think about he's doing that with a knife, and he's out in the wilderness. There's nobody else around. No medical people. I mean, there's a lot of Native Americans around. And there's some other Jesuit priests with him. So all of this building was built that way. The building itself is 90 feet long, just a little over 90 feet actually, and 40 feet wide, which is awfully large if you think about it. Maybe not compared to our school, but if you think about that, it's back in the day, it would have been one of the biggest buildings anywhere in Idaho. And keep in mind, all this painting was also done by that same priest, builder, architect, artist. When I was young, you could go back there, back behind, and that door right there, if you opened that door and went in it, there's a room, and in that room you could have actually seen the handprints of the Jesuits and the Native Americans as they put together the wattle that's inside that room. But it seems to be off limits, so you guys don't get to see any of that today. I know I've already talked about it, but here is some more of that tin that he cut out. It's not really super intricate, but still you're thinking about that. There's no place to get any of this work done. Couldn't hire someone, so you've got to do it yourselves. I want you to think about the lives of these priests and Native Americans that were here. They didn't have Walmart to run down to if they needed clothes. They had to make it themselves. They didn't have some Ace Hardware to go to if they needed nails or something. Matter of fact, when this building was built, there were no nails available. Not that nails weren't made, but they were out west and there was no manufacturer for them to get them from. And so all of the walls were put together using wooden pegs. They would drill a hole and then they would slam the wooden pegs in to be able to hold it all together. It's pretty amazing. Think about how you might do that. How would you hold it together if you didn't have nails? If you look here, there's a hole. In that hole is a wooden dowel that you can see the end of there. This is how they were holding these things together. There's no up there, but it's not quite as easy to see, but you can see the dowel sticking out a little bit. It's giving you an idea of what it looked like. This is a rock that is outside the mission. It says, Old Mission, built by the Coeur d'Alene tribe in cooperation with members of the Society of Jesuit, restored with dedication as a 1976 bicentennial project led by Henry Lawrence Day and his friend and helper Al Almquist, in whose honor this memorial is erected. Here we are on one of the sides of it, just to give you an idea. There's the front. We went in through those beautiful columns that were created. Part of the design that Father Rivalli had wanted was it to look Romanesque. The whole style is what they call Baroque, and I don't mean that it's broken. Baroque is a time period with art and music that went along with it. Let's ask your teachers about it if you get a chance, and maybe they can find you some Baroque music or Baroque art. But anyways, there you can see it's 91 feet long. It's very long. We're going to walk over there and look down onto the North Fork of the Coeur d'Alene River. Out over in this flat area here was the parsonage house. Superior's place, the parsonage house. The parsonage house was the permanent house for the superior of the mission. It is shown with a stone foundation. The west extension is depicted with a board floor, probably a porch-like structure. The building was constructed with hewn logs using the post-in-sill technique. This parsonage served the mission until 1864, when it was completely destroyed by fire. Fortunately, the church was spared. And you can see it's a beautiful view that they're looking upon every day when they were working here, the Jesuit priests and the Native Americans. Here we are, we're up in one of the overlooks at the Cataldo mission, and you can see that water right there is part of the backwater of the North Fork of the Coeur d'Alene. People would pay to come up here, either to come and experience the beauty of the mission, or else sometimes they were coming up to go mining and hunting and all other kinds of things up here. Remember that the area around here, the Silver Valley, was once a huge mining community. Lots of silver and lead, some gold, and other items were dug up from the mines. Originally it was found on the surface, like when Noah Kellogg came into Kellogg and found a vein sitting on the surface. Supposedly he was chasing his jackass, a donkey, that got away and found the vein. That's one of the rumors of Kellogg. But the fact is, they would come up here and there were railway, because people would bring up all kinds of goods they wanted to take to other areas in the valley and drop them off by steamboat and then be picked up by railway. This is the back side of the Cataldo mission. Those doors going in and out go to that back areas that are off limits to where I showed you earlier. It's a way that the Jesuit priests would enter through, and there's their little house that they were staying in, and they would come out from there and they could enter through the back or the front, whatever they chose to do. Okay, there's another one of these information points that tell us about the Mission Landing. Steamboat Transfer Point, Mission Landing. The Coeur d'Alene River is moderately visible from this vista. I already went over there and showed you that area that was backwater there, and they call it a slough. The river aided in popularizing the Sacred Heart Mission by creating a steamboat access for outlying communities. For $1, passengers could enjoy a 27-mile excursion from Coeur d'Alene Lake, and upon arriving at their destination, experience the beauty of the mission in the wilderness. In 1877, Mission Landing became the transfer point for freight and passengers from the steamers to the rail cars of the newly constructed narrow gauge railway, serving the silver mining district towns of Kellogg and Wallace. In this area that's out in front of us, right here, there was apparently a building for visiting brothers that were of the Jesuit order. This says, living quarters for brothers, lodging for travelers. The sketch, drawn in 1860, shows a long multiple unit structure parallel to the church. It housed the mission brothers and travelers, a kitchen and a repair shop. Some of the prominent travelers who visited the mission and possibly stayed in it were Isaac I. Stevens, governor of the Washington Territory, Captain John Mullen, builder of the famous Mullen Road, and General William Tecumseh Sherman of the Civil War fame. Such a beautiful area. Hopefully someday you can come visit it in person. In this area, apparently there was a barn. Here's what the little placard says: large and new, stock and crop barn. In 1853, Isaac I. Stevens, governor of the Washington Territory, described the mission as being composed of buildings enclosing a square, some being quite old, but the barn was large and new. One half of the barn was reserved for their crops, while the other was arranged for cattle. Their stock then consisted of 20 cows, 8 pairs of oxen, and 90 pigs. So somewhere out in this area was that barn. Here's another outlier building. We're a little ways away from the mission now. You can see that it's clear back over there. I mean, so it's not like a long ways or anything, but still away from the main building. I don't know if you can see that stone in the center. It's a grinding stone. This is a grist mill. Horse-powered grist mill. I'm reading from a placard over here. The horse-powered grist mill is shown with a half-timbered frame. Brother blacksmith, either Brother Charles Hewitt or Plassens, and Brother Marguerite collaborated on fashioning the grist mill in 1848. This would be before construction began on the old mission church. The mill served the mission during its active years as well as pioneer settlers later on. And then it adds that a grist mill is a mill for grinding grain. Wheat is the main grain milled at the mission. And there's a little drawing of the sketch of what it was going to look like, and kind of looked that way except for it's missing the sides. There's an old bell here, probably not the old bell from the mission, but could be. It's out in front. Apparently that's where it would have hung, and when they'd ring that, it was time for services. There's another placard here. Old Mission Bell. At sundown, the church bell tolled, and it was soon filled with humble worshipers. The chapel is quite an impressive building, the walls covered with pictures of saints and crucifixion. The Indians are very devout and tell their beads with great patience. There were many aged people led to and from the church, some totally blind, others walking on hands and feet, so bowed with age. This is from a quote from the travels of E.S. Glover in 1875. This bell was donated to the former Monac Museum of Native American Cultures in Spokane, Washington by Friar Walter Schoenberg. The bell's original location was described as coming from a mission in the Northwest. Could it have been the old mission? Maybe so. As we are getting ready to leave the mission, I just wanted to make sure you know that if you come, you can tour that building. It doesn't house the Jesuits anymore, really. You can go in there. I've been in there when there were Jesuits before, but you can go in and you can explore around. You have to go in the back. There are some private quarters, so maybe there are some that are still staying there. But I'm not doing that this time because what I came here to tell you about was that magnificent building. Hope you enjoyed this episode. We are going to head up to the Mullen Trail, so I guess we're not quite done. I shouldn't have said that. It's a little early. That's a beautiful church. One parting view there of the Cataldo Mission, Sacred Heart, also known as the House of Spirits, an old mission. Hopefully you get a chance to come up here and see it for yourself. It is magnificent. I hope that the cars in the background wasn't too loud over my voice. Here we are now at the Miner. This is for the Sunshine Mine disaster. It's a monument that is here to remember the 91 men who died in the Sunshine Mine. A fire started in the Sunshine Mine, which is just underneath that overpass and up that road there for a few miles is where the Sunshine Mine itself is at. A fire started in it, and the carbon dioxide from it, all of the smoke is what killed the miners. And so 91 of them did not make it out alive, 85 did. This is meant to remember them for all time. And there's some of the markers of the men that was underground, and then they've added some of the men who have passed away since then that were on there that day as well. I was growing up in the valley when this happened, the Silver Valley. I was going to school at Wallace Elementary, and I remember that they stopped school, and then as the panic increased about all the men in the mine, they released it for the rest of the year. It was in May, and so we got out a little bit early, but what a tragic reason to get out. I'm gonna walk up there and we'll get a little bit closer to the miner, and so you can see it in a little more detail. And from a different angle, and we are getting closer. This was made by a local artist. And it's made from leftover metals. Really pretty cool if you take a look in there. You can see where he's welded the legs together and stuff. Made little strips. Pretty amazing. It says, this memorial is dedicated by their families to the men who lost their lives in the Sunshine disaster on May 2nd, 1972, and presented to the Silver Valley by the state of Idaho on May 2nd, 1974. Here's a list of all the names. Take a look at it from this side. It says down there at the bottom, Ken Lawn, so that must be the person who made it. Pretty detailed, that's pretty impressive. Okay, let's go over to the sign and read what the sign says about it. We're at the sign here for the Sunshine Mine disaster. Sunshine disaster. On May 2nd, 1972, fire broke out in the mine. Carbon monoxide, heat, smoke, and gas spread swiftly through the tunnels, severely hampering rescue efforts. 178 miners were working at various levels. 85 made it out to safety. 7 days later, 2 miners were found alive. On May 13th, the last of the 91 victims were brought out. This was the country's worst hard rock mine disaster since 1917. The Sunshine, largest silver mine in the nation, is a mile deep and has 100 miles of tunnels. Here we are at the Miner Memorial at nighttime. Remember that this is the place where so many miners at the Sunshine Mine are memorized because they passed away in the mine fire. It's really pretty cool. It's a miner. It was made by a local artist, and it's got the light up on its head. It's never supposed to go out. It's supposed to be that everlasting light, kind of keeping their memories bright.